Hello and welcome to October's patient education programme hosted by Hashir International. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Robin Guillard, who is a researcher focused on interactions between tinnitus and sleep, as well as tinnitus heterogeneity. He began his career as an engineer with an interest in neuroscience and has been researching tinnitus for many years, looking at aiming to understand and alleviate tinnitus. His research is focused on development of long-term solutions rather than pursuing short-term, poorly supported options, and further contributing to helping and supporting tinnitus patients. Dr. Guillard will be talking about his latest research on the interactions between tinnitus and sleep. The talk will present results from recent research conducted by their team on interactions between tinnitus and sleep, covering how and why sometimes patients wake up with louder tinnitus than before sleep onset, and whether or not tinnitus manifests during dreams. There will be the opportunity to ask questions after the presentation, so please feel free to post these through the chat function. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Robin. I will now hand over to you.
Thank you a lot, and thank you for having me. I will try to share my screen. All right. Can you see it?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. Yes, I will mainly present the results that we have on our research on the interaction between tinnitus and sleep. And as we have 25 minutes together, I may not be able to cover the fact on tinnitus and dreams, but if you want to talk a little bit during the Q&A, we can do that as well. Okay, so yeah, perfect. So in terms of the interaction of tinnitus and sleep, most often what we think about is the fact that when you have a constant ringing in your head, it's hard to get to sleep. So sleep onset is hard. And we also know that a lot of patients that have tinnitus have also a concomitant insomnia. It's hard to get to sleep. But on the other hand, in some patients, it's the opposite that happens. Some patients, the problem is not about getting to sleep, but more about waking up. Because some patients will describe that notably when they do a nap during the afternoon, so they have a brief dozing off of 2 or 3 minutes, when they wake up from this short sleep event, then the tinnitus will have a reason a lot. The loudness will be the double sometimes. Sometimes it can be transitory, so after 10 minutes it will cool down and come back to normal. Or in some people it will stay very loud until the next sleep episode, which can happen the next night. And so I have been studying these cases, this subgroup of patients. So this is why also I'm interested by tinnitus heterogeneity. And we have defined, as I will precise, that it's about 1 out of 5 tinnitus patients that describe that tinnitus would get louder after a nap. And I'm also very interested in a very smaller subpopulation where tinnitus is really completely intermittent and in relation to sleep. So these persons the term we use is sleep intermittent tinnitus, is when one day they wake up, they have tinnitus for the full day, and it's going to be a bad day. And the next morning they wake up and they have no tinnitus at all, and during the whole day as well, except if they do a nap, because if they do a nap, maybe it will switch on the tinnitus. So what could be happening during sleep in these patients that could explain these brutal variations of tinnitus? Maybe it could give us some very important clues as researchers to understand what's happening in the body in relationship to the appearance or the disappearance of tinnitus. And maybe we can find a good solution for these patients thanks to this. All right, so in the work that we have been doing, first we have quantified and we have understood the symptomatologic profile of these patients that say, I have a worse tinnitus after a nap. And to do that, we studied 2 databases gathering 9,700 patients. And in these 2 databases, we overall found the same portion of patients that say my tinnitus gets worse after nap, and it's about 20%, as I said. And there is 10% of the patients that say, actually, when I do a nap, it's going to get better. And the rest of the people, they do a nap, it doesn't change anything. When we look at the profile of symptoms that is associated with this manifestation of getting a nap that worsens tinnitus, what we see is people that make this report, they have higher impact on the quality of life due to their tinnitus. And globally, it's not only naps, they have a lot of factors that can influence their tinnitus. So they have a kind of hypersensibility related to tinnitus. So tinnitus would be more modulated by sounds. It would be, there is often it's somatosensory tinnitus as well. So maneuvers of the jaw or the neck will change it. When they do sport, it will increase their tinnitus. And sleep and stress are also modulators. We also saw that fleeting tinnitus was more present in this population, as well as ear plugging, notably after sleep. In this case of intermittent tinnitus, it's globally the same symptom profile, except for the intermittence of tinnitus that adds up to the pile. Recently, so this is why I'm going to talk about this today, we studied a little bit the question of this intermittence of tinnitus in this very narrow subgroup of patients. And the question we asked is it completely random? Like one day with tinnitus, one day without tinnitus? Is it just flipping a coin every morning and looking at the result? Or is there some kind of logic pattern that we can identify? To do that, we recruited prospectively 20 patients that manifested this sleep intermittent tinnitus. And during 2 months, every morning and every evening, they would complete a questionnaire where they just mention the loudness of their tinnitus, the intrusiveness of their tinnitus. And they also gave us an idea of when they went to sleep and when they got up so that we can have a good idea of when they slept during these 2 months. So out of this, we have 17 patients that gave us enough data for us to conduct an analysis. And when we take a look about, for example, one patient over the full 2 months, this is what we can see. So this is in blue tinnitus loudness across time. So some days you see that tinnitus is at 0, no tinnitus at all. And some days it would be loud, but differently loud depending on the days. And we have also the gray bars that are when the patient declared that he or she slept. Even naps are reported. And we have this for all the patients that participated. And what we analyzed is the periodicity of the signal. Is there some kind of rhythm that repeats itself over time? And we had an hypothesis before we started this experiment, because my mentor, Dr. Alain Dero, saw a lot of these patients, and often the patients will report that there is some kind of cycle that repeats itself, and the duration of the cycle would be 3 to 4 days. So to specifically test for this periodicity length, we made some kind of Fourier analysis that is called the Long-Scargel periodogram, but it's just technicality. And we analyzed the periodicity band between 2.5 and 4.5 days. And this would be the test in green here, the test frequency band, let's say the test periodicity band. And to control that maybe the periodicity would not be elsewhere, we took the frequencies that were below and the frequencies that were above this frequency band, and these are the control frequency bands. And we tested if there was some significant peak of rhythmicity in these different bands. And for this prospective cohort, what we found is there is a specific periodicity in the test frequency band, and it was not present in the 2 control frequency bands. So it's really some kind of rhythm around 3 to 4 days. We also analyzed the sleep data of these patients, so the reported sleep diaries. Importantly, and it was not what we expected, we saw no correlation between sleep duration declared by the patient and the variation of tinnitus overnight. So it doesn't mean that, it means that potentially in these patients, sleep intermittent patients at least, the duration of sleep will not influence directly how much the tinnitus will be louder or not next morning. So it's not as simple as that. But on the other hand, what we saw is we confirmed that tinnitus is influenced by sleep in these patients because, first, comparing days without sleep with nights where there is sleep, we hope, then there is more variation of tinnitus during the nights, but it's absolute variation, so both directions. And when we compared days with naps to days without naps, what we saw is we have increase of tinnitus during days with naps and not as much in the other days. So really, when sleep occurs, there is more variation of tinnitus in these patients. What we also saw is when they woke up in the middle of the night, tinnitus would get a little milder, but we're going to see that a bit further afterwards. Uh, well, we first started to talk about this research and this discovery to other researchers, and Professor Winnichley kindly also proposed to share his data because he had a big data set with tracheal tinnitus, and he had all the data we needed to reproduce what we have found in the first cohort. So we took this big database of 1,800 patients and we selected a similar sample as what we had, but it was only 17 patients with enough data in this database. And we have selected as well two control groups. One, which was the control group 2, it's only constant tinnitus, so no variation with sleep or between days. Control group 1 was intermittent tinnitus, but without influence of sleep. And we conducted the same analysis and with rhythmicity with the 3 frequency bands. And what we saw is in the sleep intermittent patients, we had the same very specific not specific, but very strong rhythmicity that was present here. We observed in this reproduction, this replication of the study, that there was some rhythmicity that was present in the control frequency band 2. What it means, it's this band is about the weekly rhythm, so it's between 4.5 and 9 days. So maybe there is a weekend effect. Maybe tinnitus would get better in the weekend. And these two rhythmicities were actually also identified in control group 1, which is people with intermittent tinnitus, but not sleep relationship. In terms of strong effect, what I saw is it's less strong in this control frequency, in this control group 1, but it's still present, this significativity. So interestingly, all intermittent tinnitus patients seem to be a little concerned by this rhythmicity. And then Professor Schley challenged me a bit more, and he said to me, okay, Robin, you found the result in 2 cohorts, but let's dig a little further, and now let's do the reverse analysis. So you start with a big database, and you select all the patients that you can that have a rhythmicity specifically of between 2.5 and 4.5 days, and you compare their symptomatologic profile to everyone else in the database. So when we do that, interestingly, we see the symptomatology of sleep intermittent patients appear. So it really means that it's an effect that is bidirectional. So rhythmicity of 3 to 4 days is associated with these symptoms, because the first symptom that goes out of this analysis is the naps worsens tinnitus. And we have the relationship with sleep, the relationship with stress, and the variation from day to day. So a little bit all the patterns that we could expect to see in these patients. So the next steps, importantly, was about, well, what is a rhythm of 3 to 4 days in the body? Is there a research that explains in the biology of the body some things that would be varying with 3 to 4 days? So we looked for that, and honestly, there were really few articles and of relatively poor quality, to be honest. There is no evidence in the literature of, there is no strong evidence that there is some kind of 3 to 4 days rhythm in the body. We know that there are circadian rhythm of duration of 1 day. We have menstrual cycle only for women on 28 days, but between the two, we don't have much things that we know. But some researchers have found that in terms of sleep duration or in terms of REM sleep duration, more specifically, we have cycles of 3 to 4 days. And this was a little bit interesting. But still, I was not really convinced by the fact that we could expect to find some kind of secret biological clock inside the body that nobody knew about. So most probably what happens is more maybe not a biological clock per se, but more like some kind of accumulation, disaccumulation cycles that would repeat itself, more like some kind of oscillators. And I discussed this with a mathematician to ask him, well, can we, through a random process, create a rhythm of 3 to 4 days in data? And interestingly, what he responded is, you cannot create such a rhythm by throwing a coin every morning. But if you have some kind of coin that has a little memory, so if you know what happens the day before and maybe the day even before, then you can have such cycles that can appear. So we fitted a model that is called a Markov chain to see if we can reproduce, like with a simulation, our results. And the answer is yes. So due to that, what we can say is our result is potentially true, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a biological clock somewhere in the body that has a duration of 3 to 4 days. Maybe it's an accumulation and disaccumulation phenomenon that is happening. Um, all right, so to continue a little bit, actually, this research, I have conducted it directly with a patient that was very invested. His name is Kenneth Rowling here, and he's a co-author of the study because he involved himself a lot. He's a SAT patient, and he was willing to do a little extra more work to try to understand what was happening. Of course, we all want that. And what we observed in his case was that every time he did a nap, it would increase his tinnitus. And he often woke up like 1 hour and a half after starting a night. And very often, mostly, it will lead to a decrease of tinnitus. So this is very weird. When he initiates sleep like at midnight and wakes up at 1:30 in the morning, then it would decrease tinnitus. But when he does the same thing during the day, it increases tinnitus. It just same duration of sleep, but different effects. So when we looked at this, we said, well, we don't know if it's because when he started sleep at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, he was less tired, so it would create this increase, or maybe because it was the hour of the day, and consequently, it's circadian rhythm. So to be able to disentangle what would be the effect between circadian rhythm and sleep pressure, he was very brave because he tested to do 2 sleepless nights. So for a full night, he stayed up, stayed put, and at 3 p.m. the next day, he tried to do a nap. And when he did that, he observed a decrease in tinnitus the 2 times he tried this nap after one day staying up all night. And this tends to show that it's not potentially circadian rhythmicity, but more sleep pressure that is important as a factor to decrease or increase tinnitus. Okay, so then we were very enthusiastic and we wanted to test that. So we took all the data we had with the sleep diaries and we tried to do models to modelize this sleep depth over time. So I did the first model, which was quite naive, and I found some significant results. So I was so happy. And then I tried a refined model so that we can really have an effect of chronic sleep depth, so the accumulation of fatigue through days. And when we did that a second time, it didn't work. So no significant and conclusive results so far on the chronic sleep debt, which I am quite disappointed about this, but that's research. We try and sometimes we fail. And at least for what we call the chronic sleep debt of deep sleep, because these models, they model how much we lack deep sleep. But in sleep, we don't have only this state of deep sleep that is very necessary. We have also what we call paradoxical sleep. And I don't have a lot of time, so I will just skip this. Some time ago, we did a research in a polysomnography lab, so a sleep research lab, and 15 patients with sleep intermittent tinnitus came with 15 controlled tinnitus patients that had no variation of their tinnitus with sleep. And we looked at their polysomnography, so brain recording whole body recording to know in which sleep stages they were and how their sleep worked. And when we looked at that, comparing the two groups, what we found is sleep intermittent patients, they have some kind of shallower sleep. They have more light sleep, less deep sleep, and less paradoxical sleep. And when we looked at the duration of paradoxical sleep in relation to the variation of tinnitus overnight, we found a correlation, meaning that the less they did paradoxical sleep, the more they had tinnitus loudness in the morning. So, so just to say that we reproduced that in one patient over 6 nights, same patient going through the experiment. But what I want to say is when we did the models that I presented you that failed about the deep sleep depths, well, what we can say also is we could try to modelize not deep sleep depth, but paradoxical sleep depth. And this is what I recently tried, taking back these data that we had collected in the past and making a model of REM sleep depth, which is a little more complicated because it varies overnight and depending at the moment of the sleep cycle. And interestingly, we found a strong correlation between high REM sleep depth and high tinnitus. So maybe, and this is what we have as an hypothesis that we want to test in the future, the problem that, at least what we kind of observe and what we think is people with sleep intermittent tinnitus may have often REM sleep depth, and when it occurs, it tends maybe to make the tinnitus louder. So we have several things that go in this direction, and well, we want to test it more, of course, but it seems like maybe it's going to be a bit like this. And honestly, we applied for funding to try to test if increasing REM sleep may have a beneficial effect for these patients. Um, and we have first observations for two drugs, which are Lyrica and the other one is lamotrigine, I guess. But it's experience collected by my mentor, Dr. Alandero, over years with patients. So this is gives us a little hope. But there are some specific drugs that could increase rapid eye movement sleep, and we don't have really ideas if in this specific population of patients it helps them or not. So we are looking for testimonies if patients tested them by themselves and if it worked or if it doesn't work. We just want to know before investing a lot of money and time in clinical trials, maybe a few observations would help us to figure out if it goes in a good direction. So this is where we are. And if you have sleep intermittent tinnitus and perhaps you have tested different things and things that works, things that doesn't work, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we'll be very happy to hear about your experience because it will help us a lot to know what would be happening associated with these variations. Thank you a lot. And just to give you the possibility to contact me if you want, you can send emails to robin@supi.ai if you want, so that if you have a
Amazing.
testimony, yeah.
Excellent. And because actually that's incredible because the amount of patients that I speak to who do these experiments on themselves and, look at, okay, what are the patterns in my behaviors with my sleep and my tinnitus? So I'm sure there are people out there who have done tried different things and would be able to get in touch with you. So that's excellent. Thank you so much, Robin.
If people have collected by themselves some kind of diaries of their tinnitus variation over time, over like 1 month, I'm very interested because definitely, like, I have actually a third cohort now because since I started this work, people have reached out to me and have reproduced the results in a third cohort. So it's still ongoing.
Amazing. Um, yeah, it's really incredible, isn't it? Because it is what it's patients with tinnitus are so passionate about um finding more information about this, and they're willing to do this. So that's excellent, and being able to reach out to our patients as well and being able to forward them on to you would be, I know that there are so many of our patients that we see and who ask, is there anything that I can do, that any, research that I can be a part of? So that's definitely something that we'll be able to pass on to them. So that's great. Can I get you to just pop the presentation down for me, Robin, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. So you've obviously said you've got now like a third cohort of patients that you'll be able to replicate results again. What are your next steps, or what are you doing currently at the moment?
So two things. So in terms of tinnitus research, we applied for funding with an association, I would say, that is called Tinnitus Quest, and maybe we'll get funding, maybe not. And what we want to try is these drugs that will change sleep for the better, we hope. And in this specific group of patients, we want to see if it improves tinnitus. So what I said is, for some of these drugs that are not maybe the drugs that will be more specifically targeting rapid eye movement sleep, paradoxical, sleep is not the same thing as rapid eye movement sleep. So for for two drugs, we have some testimonies that are good. So for now, we are going the direction to test in a real setup of clinical trial these drugs. And this is what we expect, that we will reproduce these first findings that are positive and encouraging. But to be honest, there are these recent drugs that are specifically known to increase rapid eye movement sleep. And I just have no feedback currently. I don't have any patients that any sleep intermittent tinnitus patients that tested this, and I don't know if it's going to work. And before we invest like 1.5 year in testing a clinical trial and $1,100 on this, I just want to be a little more sure, let's
Yeah,
say.
have some reassurance from someone, or yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. So yes, so that's definitely something that we will be able to pass on to patients to be able to have a look and see whether they have anything that they will be able to share with you. Do you feel that is it tinnitus or anxiety that impacts on sleep? And is there any evidence of sleep disturbances in people with tinnitus without anxiety?
This will be a more general question, because again, what I presented, the results that I presented to you, it's very important to to assert that it's observations that are in a specific subgroup of patients that manifest a specific set of symptoms. But your question is valid for most tinnitus patients, I guess. And although I'm less an expert on this topic, I would say that yes, what I consider as very good research articles that address this topic with a link of anxiety and maybe tinnitus and insomnia. There is an article that relates this phenomenon to a common cause that is called hyperarousal. So hypervigilance. And we know in insomnia that hyperarousal can, explains a bit the symptoms that affect the patients that don't succeed in going to sleep. And we have some scientific evidence that hyperarousal is also pretty common and pretty present in tinnitus patients, and they have signs of it. And I would argue that this would be the common trait between anxiety and difficulty to go to sleep when you have tinnitus.
From your research, obviously you were looking at like people who are napping and their tinnitus becoming louder after naps. Would you make that almost as a recommendation or a suggestion to patients, that the possibility that actually napping isn't going to be beneficial for them if they didn't want to risk there being an increase in their tinnitus?
Well, if you observe that often when you doze off or when you do a nap, it's going to increase tinnitus, yeah, most of the time it seems that it will occur. But as we had like 37 patients and we observed 200 naps in our lab, what we say is, what we observed is, first, most of the time it will be how to say, the transitory increase, because it seems like it will cool down after 10, 20 minutes in most cases. But sometimes it's get potentiated somehow and it will stay up until the next night, and next morning maybe it will get better. If I were to give an advice, I would say avoid doing a nap in not a good position, like, because when you are on the couch, you will have not a very restful position and you will not be able to go into deeper stages of sleep, which may be a little bit beneficial. It seems that from our data, the we have higher chances of observing decrease in tinnitus loudness when you start your nap in the morning. In the afternoon, it will lead most often to an increase. But in the morning, sometimes we observed reduction of tinnitus after a nap. And from what I know on rapid eye movement sleep regulation literature, I would argue that if you do a long nap in the morning, perhaps like 1 hour and a half, perhaps it would lead to lesser tinnitus. But it's quite counterintuitive to do very long naps in the morning. So I don't know if my advice would be very helpful.
Does the duration of the nap have any effect on tinnitus?
Yes, it seems, because so I had to dig up a little bit into details. We did a protocol that I could not present today. And in this protocol, we made naps between 5 minute duration and 25-minute duration. And on this range of duration, more, the longer the nap, the higher the tinnitus in the end. Uh, so it tends to say, oh no, don't do a lot of a long duration of nap because it would get worse. But as I said, if we are right for this hypothesis on rapid eye movement sleep, if you sleep enough to get to the stage of REM sleep during your nap, which mostly happens in the morning, then if you do a little bit more of it and you decrease your REM sleep depth, then perhaps waking up, you will have lower tinnitus. And perhaps this is what happened to some of our patients in our protocol. So this is why the more I advance on this research, the more I grow convinced that depending on the moment in the sleep cycle that you wake up when you are a sleep intermittent tinnitus patient, then the more it's important for predicting the loudness of tinnitus. So another solution in the future may be to optimally wake up patients at a specific moment in their cycle to decrease their tinnitus. But from experience, I know that the current technologies that we have for that, like in terms of smart rings or smart watches, is not really satisfactory in terms of accuracy, despite what they claim. So even in research, I tried rings and I observed the results, and it was not really trustworthy. So I'm still looking for a good solution for this. I'm not satisfied yet.
Um, i- is tinnitus-induced sleep problems the same mechanism as for insomnia?
No, I don't think so. I have no reason to believe it. And actually, I wouldn't say that sleep intermittent induced patients are patients that are complaining of insomnia. These are not the same patients. Most often, they have no problem to go to sleep, and sometimes they are sleepy. This is why, despite the fact that no, this is not a good justification. Sorry. So I would say it's different kinds of patients.
Yeah. It seems like a vicious cycle, doesn't it? Because obviously, in regards to the fact that I speak to patients with tinnitus, who struggle to get to sleep because of their tinnitus, or if they wake in the night, then they struggle to get back to sleep. They're obviously lacking good sort of REM quality sleep throughout the night. So then they potentially are the patients who want to nap maybe later on in the day because that's when they're becoming more tired because they've had a reduced amount of sleep. But essentially, all of these things, what the body wants isn't necessarily what's going to be most beneficial for actually how they're managing their tinnitus.
Yes, I quite agree with it. And well, that would probably uh, please you to hear that I also I encourage people to go through cognitive behavioral therapy for dealing with their insomnia because with the current knowledge that we have over like meta-analysis, uh, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is really what is mostly advised to deal with it. And I would say that with a comorbid tinnitus, it's also very true. And there was actually a good publication, a scientific paper 2 years ago, I guess, maybe 1 year and a half, that was from Professor McKenna, that is one of your um, he's an Englishman, maybe Irish in the start, but he's living in England, I guess. And he made a good study demonstrating that cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia for tinnitus patients worked well. And I trust these results. I think that it's a good way to go.
Excellent. Once you've had a look at the next piece of research, is there anywhere else, where do you see this taking you going further?
Um, hmm. So I couldn't talk about this today, but I think tinnitus is heterogeneous, and that we have one word to describe a myriad of different symptoms profiles, and we don't even know if everyone has the same pathophysiology. Actually, we call tinnitus patients people that have pulsatile tinnitus, despite the fact that it's completely different from the species of the inner ear that are damaged in tinnitus. So, in terms of what I expect to do in the next years, I would be just really happy if at least my contribution would help this subgroup of patients that I have been studying. And there will be other researchers like me that will dedicate their time to other subgroups. And bit by bit, we can hope that we can find solutions for the totality of the patients. I also really appreciate and applaud the results, like, for example, of Sarah Michels in Belgium, that is really dedicating her career in studying somatosensory tinnitus and really people that have problems in the neck and the jaw. And through their methods, they are refining it, and it's really helping. And we have also all this Susan Shore device and Lanier that are addressing somatosensory tinnitus. And segment by segment, we can hope that we can find solutions. So far, there were very few people that dedicated time to study sleep intermittent tinnitus. And well, I'm doing that, and I really hope that in the next years we can really find some good solutions for these patients.
Because it has such, a detrimental impact on patients' lives, doesn't it? And it's something that is hugely brought up by my patients when I, see them. Why is my tinnitus worse after I've been to sleep? When I wake up in the morning, this is when it's so much worse. And the like you said, about patients keeping diaries. There's so many of my patients who look for patterns and in their behaviors or in the quality of sleep that they had in relation uh, with their tinnitus as well. So it's really interesting. What is your view about improving sleep efficiency? So, like things like the ratio of time in bed to time asleep.
It is with what I said before, is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is a good way to go because if you are really struggling to get good sleep, you should take medical advice for this. And well, what we often hear in the domain of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is that your bed should be a place where you sleep, and you should not dedicate your time to maybe play on your smartphone or text message on your bed, because you want that in your brain. The association is when I go to my bed, I go there to sleep. And so staying a very long time inside the bed, struggling either to go to sleep or doing anything else, is maybe not helpful. And the other advice that comes out of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is to potentially wake up systematically at the same hour in the morning, and to solve the problem by waking up at the same hour and not trying to go to bed earlier and earlier to say, oh, I have missed some sleep, so I should go again. And this seems as a more efficient solution to go back to having a good sleep. And to see, of course, a sleep doctor to get some help, or a psychologist or psychiatrist, it depends. But sleep medicine will be helpful for you.
It's a really good point, isn't it? Sleep hygiene is so important. It's something that we discuss with patients in clinic, if they are struggling to get to sleep, because actually sometimes when you delve deeper into a patient's life, there can be something quite like obvious to us, or maybe not to them, that is maybe impinging on how they're getting to sleep, regardless of their tinnitus or any insomnia factors as well. So and I love that. I love the going to bed to go to sleep. I think it's so important, and is something that we don't have TVs in our bedrooms at home, and I think it's just really nice to be able to have that relaxing environment, and it is hopefully really encouraging for
Yeah.
patients.
On this topic, the research I did on tinnitus and dreams, we couldn't cover it today, but I did it with a psychologist in France, Nicolas Demant. I love this guy. When he talks, I'm relieved. Not really, really. I really love him. And and he proposed me recently so that we do another study together on sleep onset for tinnitus patients. And this is a good idea. And so I look forward to talking more with him and to try to launch something on this. It would be cool.
Is that so? That's something else that you're sort of interested in terms of, is it how tinnitus impacts dreams, or um,
This is published already. So this has been done, and the main results that was known is that people that have tinnitus, well, they don't dream about that tinnitus, or they don't hear that tinnitus inside their dreams. So this had been published before, and actually also from Professor Az, and a research paper like 4 years ago. And actually, what we did a little new was that some people, they remember their dreams, and some people, they are even aware that they are dreaming while they are dreaming, what we call lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is now a scientific reality because we observe it in laboratory condition and we can reproduce it. Some patients, they have it as a comorbidity of narcolepsy, which is not fun to have, but a good side of it is you can take control of your dream. So why not? And we had a small sample of patients that reported making lucid dreams and having tinnitus. And interestingly, what we observed is 2/3 of these patients did not hear tinnitus inside their lucid dreams. And when they heard tinnitus inside the lucid dream, they could also hear what was happening inside the bedroom. So it seems like when you are aware of your surroundings, so if the real sounds are getting to your brain and consciously processed, then tinnitus comes with it. But if you are in a dream environment and you create your own sound features, then you have no tinnitus. Interestingly.
it's very
Uh,
interesting.
So that was on Tinnitus and Dreams, and in the future, maybe with the same collaborator, Nicolas Domant, we we would investigate the question about sleep onset and insomnia for tinnitus patients. Because, well, there are things that we know in neuroscience about how sleep onset happens. We know which brain regions get activated and what can impair this process to happen. So that could be also interesting to study a little more.
Yes, definitely. Um, Going back to sort of improving sleep efficiency, um, some of the things that we may look at may potentially be seen as sort of safety-seeking behaviours for tinnitus. So when we are looking at helping patients with tinnitus, we would try to limit their safety-seeking behaviours. And so things like potentially things that might help with sleep, such as leaving the bed if you're struggling to get to sleep. Um, would would it be beneficial for patients to continue that, even though in regards to tinnitus, it might be seen as emphasizing those sleep safety seeking behaviors?
I can't really answer to this because my experience is not enough profound in terms of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia for patients. I'm not a therapist myself, I'm a researcher. So I would trust more what would say a real therapist on the matter than what I could predict.
Do you see any benefit in terms of, so some of our patients may well stay up later um, in the hope that they are more tired so they can go to sleep easier, so their tinnitus isn't impacting them getting to sleep. But actually, what you were saying earlier about having a good, like a healthy sleep routine, going to bed at the same night, waking up at the same time in the morning, that would potentially be more beneficial for them.
On this topic, there is more research to be done. There are multiple things that you have to take into account because going to sleep later means that you are less aligned with your circadian rhythm. Maybe this can have a beneficial or a negative effect. Getting to sleep later means also you are more tired, so you have more sleep pressure. As a consequence, you may have deeper sleep, and potentially this have a beneficial effect. Um, but in the same time, if you do that, but you wake up at the same early hour, then you are sleep deprived in the morning. So this also can be damaging for your tinnitus. It's hard to disentangle all these effects for now. I don't have a complete answer, but from what I saw is it seems like for sleep intermittent patients, it can help to go back to sleep a little later when they are more tired to access a deeper stage of sleep so that in the morning it's going to get better. But the trick in this is the next day they're going to be tired. So when they go to bed the next night, they will be maybe not in the best state. And the next morning, maybe it's going to be quite louder. So it's like maybe having a good day to have another bad one.
There are lots of
I'm not
impacting
sure.
factors.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not exactly totally sure about how to exactly proceed optimally, but thinking about this still.
And I suppose the emphasis is on, as you said, good sleep hygiene, seeing a sleep doctor if needed, putting all of these important things into place to make sure that the environment at least is conducive of sleep, even if it's more difficult for the patient or if they have insomnia or tinnitus that's impacting their sleep. Putting all these things into place is going to be really beneficial.
Well, I would argue that it's above all important also to see a sleep doctor because uh, what is not maybe enough known is sleep apnea is quite often comorbid with tinnitus. And sleep apnea by its nature, affects sleep and sleep continuity, and it fragments sleep because you wake up a lot of times without even knowing it because you are lacking air. And so what I saw really, because I see the recordings of patients that are sleeping, I see that they don't go as much as they can into this deep sleep or rapid eye non-sleep due to sleep apnea. So maybe you don't even know it, but by seeing a sleep doctor, you could be diagnosed with sleep apnea, and treating it might help the quality of your sleep and consequently maybe improve your tinnitus. So that's also something to take into consideration, and a good reason to go to see
Actually
a
go and
sleep
see
doctor just in
somebody.
case.
Yes, definitely. Something that is undiagnosed and could be having, a huge contributing factor. If you're then able to sleep through the night much better, you're not being woken. There isn't going to be a problem about getting back to sleep because the tinnitus is affecting you. So that's a really important factor. Hashir has just sent a email, a question in. What is your understanding about the areas in the brain that can be responsible for both sleep problems and tinnitus, as opposed to assuming tinnitus is impacting sleep? One place that can cause both, as opposed that they impact one each other.
Many places. Sleep affects a lot of places in the brain, and now in tinnitus research, we have different places where we qualify it as the tinnitus network in the brain that is associated with the presence or the absence of tinnitus. So we currently, even though it is getting quite slow, but we are working on a review on tinnitus and sleep that will be tackling exactly this topic. So which areas and which mechanisms are associated with sleep, which are associated with tinnitus, and what are the common points. So to say maybe two important factors would be neuromodulation by neurotransmitters. So you have some neurotransmitters in the brain, and we call them monoaminergic neurotransmitters, such as serotonin, dopamine, noradrenaline. These are boosting the brain to stay awake. Basically, when you have a high level of serotonin and noradrenaline, then you stay up. And when you go to sleep, it's decreasing and it's normal. And in sleep, in rapid eye movement sleep, it's even totally silent. You don't have monoaminergic influx. And so potentially people with tinnitus and with comorbidities such as anxiety uh, could have higher than normal levels of noradrenaline and serotonin, and that could put them in this state of hyperarousal. So it's harder to go to sleep because they have this constant, like, tonic influx of these neurotransmitters. And so that's one factor and one reason. Um, we are also working and studying some parts of the brain that are associated with tinnitus, that could be associated with different stages of sleep. We know that emotional limbic centers are quite affected, notably in case of rapid eye movement sleep. And lacking rapid eye movement sleep can have potentially damaging effect on these brain regions, and associated with it, it could increase tinnitus. So we are looking into this. It's a little too early to tell, but that's also a good possibility.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today, Robin. I really appreciate it. Obviously, you've shared your email address, so I will put that one on the in the comment section as well, so that if there are patients who have any of this documentation, have been recording, how long would you say that you would like in terms of reference? A month?
In our protocol, it was 2 months, but to conduct a statistical analysis, I would say 1 month is good. 3 weeks, but it's maybe not enough. So 1 month is good. But above all, I would be interested that if you have in your community some people that have this kind of sleep intermittent induced patients, um, I would be just interested to have testimonies on what they tried as solutions, what worked and what didn't work. I really want to hear all about this. And I have started a work where I gather all these testimonies. I showed this in the slide, like I saw that magnesium seems to be not working, that some drugs, antidepressive drugs, are not working also, ones that are targeting serotonin, notably. So I want to just have more knowledge on this, thanks to the wisdom of many patients that try different things, that have different lives, different experiences. So all this will be very valuable. So please just manifest yourself, send me a mail, tell me a bit of your story. I can send you a questionnaire so that I have the same basis of knowledge
Yeah.
and I can compare with other patients, and that would be great.
That's amazing. And there's definitely patients I know in my community that would love to be a part of this. So that is excellent. So please contact Robin. Or ourselves, we can always pass that on to Robin as well if you are interested in making some contact. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you next month for our next patient education program.